first of all, thank you for inviting me here to talk to you guys. I appreciate you guys being here to listen to my story. I'm not a normal public speaker. I'm just a normal guy, so don't expect too much, but hopefully you'll get something out of this. Everyone has a story, so I'm going to tell you mine. All right, so growing up, who, when they were a kid, had what they would call like the plan, like a blueprint for how you wanted your life to go? Yeah, a couple people? Cool. All right. I definitely did too. I grew up in Grand Rapids, right, down by like Easton and Burton. Not a great area of town, but it was with my mom, single mom, and my sister in a rental house. We didn't have much money. It's probably an understatement. We were on food stamps. I got free lunch at school. All our clothes came from Walmart or Max 10 or Goodwill. Never got like the cool new Nintendos and stuff like that came out, but it was still okay. So, like I said, growing up, I was pretty poor. My family were not Christians. Didn't really even know anything about God other than a friend of mine would invite me to youth group every once in a while on Wednesday at his church. And so I would go with him sometimes. And the reason was really because I wanted to play basketball and pool and play the games that they had there rather than the actual youth group. But back at home, my mom worked usually 2 jobs, sometimes more than that. So my sister and I were pretty much on our own most of the time. And not having much else to do, we would just hang out with our friends or watch TV or whatever the case may be. The 2 things that I really learned, or that I guess got developed in me when I was a kid, were self-reliance and being broke sucks. One of the good things, though, is that my mom knew that I needed some good male role models in my life. And so she made sure I spent time with my grandpa, who was a former U.S. Marine as well and drill instructor, and then spent 20 years in Michigan State Troopers before he retired from that. In fact, I'll just go on a little aside here. My whole family is full of Marines. So it was my grandpa, an aunt, an uncle, my mom, my dad, and 2 cousins are all Marines. So you can imagine the type of environment I grew up in. It was pretty regimented, which I'm not complaining about. But the other guy that my mom had me spend time with was part of the Big Brothers and Big Sisters program. His name was Mark. And he was an engineer and a technical salesman, had a nice car, great house, looked like anything that he wanted he could buy. To me, that was pretty successful for how he was living, and I wanted to do something similar. So I started developing my plan. My plan was to get good grades, get into a good college, become an engineer, or at least get an engineering degree, and then go into the Marines to be a fighter pilot, and then after that, go to NASA and be an astronaut. So basically, I wanted to do what my mentors were doing, but go even further than they did. And that was success to me, and that's what I wanted to do. So that was my plan. And it was going pretty well. I was getting good grades in school, pretty much never studied, but still got all A's and B's. I would do my homework in class before I even went home, so then when I went home, I could just play around. I joined a bunch of clubs and activities and things like that at school so I could get into a good college, hopefully, and seemed like I was doing everything right. My junior year of high school, I went and checked out a few different colleges to see where I wanted to go. First one I went to was Michigan. Any Michigan fans? A couple? All right. I liked Michigan. It's a good college. Second one was Michigan State. Anyone? Yeah, a couple? All right. I wasn't a big fan of that one. The third one I went to was Ohio State. I know. That was just a favor to my big brother because that's where he went. But the last one I went to was Notre Dame, and that's where I really fell in love. There's something at Notre Dame when you get on campus, it's called the Notre Dame Mystique. And it's a feeling you get when you're there just the beautiful campus that is surrounding you. It's a Catholic university, obviously, so it really does feel like the Spirit of God is there with you and kind of gives you some peace. And it's a different feeling. It's hard to describe, but I definitely felt it when I was there. Also, all the people were awesome. The campus is beautiful, like I mentioned. And I went to a football game, which really sealed the deal for me. So that's where I decided I wanted to go. Came back to school, told my guidance counselor when it was time to start applying for colleges, and she told me that nobody from Godwin goes to Notre Dame. You should focus on trying to get into Michigan or maybe GVSU. Definitely apply for Calvin or Grand Rapids Community College in case you don't get into those either. So just focus on that. Like, you can apply to Notre Dame, but you're probably going to be wasting your money and your time. So I'm the type of person who, if you tell me I can't do something that I want to do, I'm probably going to prove you wrong. I'll find a way. And so that's what I did. I worked really hard to make sure I joined as many clubs and activities as possible. I even started a few at my high school. Got good grades still, of course. Worked really hard on my essay, got good scores on my SAT, and I applied to Notre Dame, of course, and then since I wanted to be an engineer, I also applied to Michigan and Michigan Tech, with my real goal, obviously, of going to Notre Dame. So luckily, I can say I actually got into all three, which was a blessing. Got a ton of scholarships that I'd applied for as well, which helped financially because we didn't have any money. And some of you may not like me based on the response we got earlier, but I got a full ride to Michigan, and I still went to Notre Dame. So everything was going well. I was in college now. You know, my plan had started, got the good grades, got into a good college, declared my major as aerospace engineering because I figured that's what's going to help me get further in my plan to become a pilot and an astronaut eventually. And was having fun. It was great. I was out on my own. No rules, no parents. It was awesome. And then real life hit and kind of set fire to that plan. Since I mentioned before that I never really studied in high school because I was always the smart kid who could, kind of skate by, I got to Notre Dame and I went from being the smart kid to maybe average if I was lucky. All the classes are a little harder in college, in case you didn't know. And so found out that being smart isn't quite good enough. You actually have to work hard too. But I didn't have any work ethic because I never had to before. So that first semester, I ended up having pretty much all C's and D's in my report card, and a letter included that said that I was on academic probation now. And if I didn't get my grades up by the next semester, then I'd be kicked out of college. That was a pretty big reality hit. Took my pride down to new lows, because it was pretty high before, as you can imagine. But that was a problem that needed to get pushed down. The other thing that happened during my first year of college is that I had a girlfriend that was kind of on and off during high school, my senior year, and we never really had a great relationship, but we would be together and then we weren't, and then we were together again, then we weren't. Dumb kid. Anyway, she followed me down to Notre Dame, or down to Indiana, and went to a college that was about 20 minutes away from me, and we continued our relationship during my freshman year, for the first part of it anyway. After we broke up for, fifth time, let's say, a week later, she came over and wanted to talk. And so I was like, okay. And sitting in my dorm room on the futon, she said, "I'm pregnant." So that wasn't part of my plan. I was young in college, didn't have a job, didn't have any money, not mature enough to be a father, let alone ready to be a father. I wasn't planning on marrying this girl. And so, everything that I thought I was working towards, I figured was crumbling before me. And if that wasn't bad enough, my mom and my aunt were both also diagnosed with breast cancer during that same freshman year. That required a double mastectomy for both of them, and radiation and chemo, which was tough to handle as well, as you can imagine. Oh, and this was the year 2001, and everyone knows what happened during 9/11, threw the whole world into chaos. So all the stuff that I was doing, the plans that I'd made and everything, the plans were great, but things don't always go according to plan. And there's a Bible verse that kind of talks about this. Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." I was reaping pride, lack of discipline, and minimal effort, and I was sowing basically chaos in my life. So what did I do? At the low point of my life up to that point, I decided that God could help me. That's what my friend said, right? That's what church said. So there's a spot on campus that's called the Grotto. It's kind of like a cave that is a cave built out of like stones, and then there's a rack, or there's multiple racks inside with candles in them, and there's a praying kind of bench right in front of it. And the idea is that you go, you kneel, you say a prayer, then you go into the grotto, you grab a candle, and you light it off of someone else's already lit candle, and you put it in the rack. The idea being that your prayer will continue on, as will the person's whose flame you lit, as long as that keeps going. It's a really cool place. So I went to the grotto. There's other people there too, probably not in exactly the same situation, but similar. It's a very popular place for people who are going through tough stuff. Said my prayer, I basically said, "Hey God, if you can fix this for me and get me back on track for what my plan is supposed to be, I promise I'll be good." I heard a couple chuckles, so you probably know that didn't really work. You can't negotiate with God, for anyone who's wondering. So continued on. I started studying harder because I didn't want to get kicked out of school. And second semester, thankfully, I got my grades up enough that I could stay. And so first year is done, great. That summer, my first son was born. And me and his mom decided that we have a kid together, we should probably try to make it work again for the sixth time. So we tried, and we were on and off still, even then. I went back to college for my sophomore year. She stayed home with our son. And round two, I hadn't really changed much. So though I still kept my grades up enough at least to not get kicked out, I wasn't doing well. And you guys are going to think I'm lying. But after a couple months, my sophomore year, she called me up again and said, "Hey, guess what? I'm pregnant." So my second son is on the way now because I hadn't learned my lesson the first time. And I didn't even know what to think, but I kept going with what I was doing, I guess. So I hadn't really changed. There's kind of a universal law that we talked about before where you can make your plans, but whatever you reap, you're going to sow. And that prayer that I'd said at the grotto was really, it was trying to negotiate with God. It was trying to fix my cracked foundation with duct tape. It wasn't a real change of my heart. I was just trying to, get out of the situation that I was in, really. So no big surprise that things still weren't going very well. This brings me to my junior year, where I was doing okay academically. Still not great, but I decided that, again, I was going to continue following my plan as best I could. And for the Marine Corps, in order to be a fighter pilot in the Marines, or any pilot for that matter, you have to be an officer. You can't be enlisted. So I couldn't just drop out of college and go enlist. I had to finish college because you have to have a degree and then go to officer candidate school, get through that, and then I could get off to flight school as long as I passed the tests and everything that was necessary. So after my junior year of college, that summer, I went to OCS, Officer Candidate School. That's a 10-week program that is in Quantico, Virginia during the summer, which is super hot and humid. And there, basically, they test your strength, your endurance, your ability to handle stress very well. And they also test your leadership and problem-solving abilities, because you're not, this might sound wrong, I don't know exactly a better way to say it, but you're not just going to be a Marine, you're going to be a leader of Marines. So they want to make sure that not only are you tough enough to be a Marine, you also have to be able to lead other Marines. And so the difference between OCS and boot camp is when you go to boot camp, you enlist and you sign a contract and you're in for 4 years or whatever it may be. If you're not making it in boot camp for whatever reason, or you get hurt, you get kind of held back, and they work with you until you can continue on, and then you kind of go on with the next class until you can finish it, and then you go off to your MLS. OCS is different in that you don't sign anything before you go, other than taking a test to make sure you meet whatever standards. But once you're there, if you get hurt, you get sent home, and you have to come back. You have to start all over, basically, if you want to do it. If you decide that it's just too hard and you can't make it for whatever reason, you can choose to go home, and it's fine. There's no consequence. Or if your drill instructors think that you're not good enough, you can't make it, or they wouldn't want to be led by you, they can send you home. And they sent people home every week. So it was challenging, to say the least. I like to call it the best experience that I'd never want to have again. There is an event towards the end of it, the second to last week, that's called the Forge. It's the last event that happens during OCS, where this whole time you've been doing a bunch of different stuff to learn how to be a Marine and all the challenges they put you through and all that. So the Forge is the last big event that kind of puts all that stuff into one, and it's about a day and a half long. The way it works is everyone gets their packs. You pack a tent and all this other stuff is about 60 pounds. Grab your rifle and you march out into the woods about 9 miles at night. And then when you get there, you set up your tent and you go to sleep, except nobody really sleeps because you're all freaking out. 4 hours later, they wake you up with yelling and screaming and gunshots and all kinds of craziness. Tell you to pack your stuff as quickly as you can, and then you get on your way to start doing these different maneuvers, they call them. So you go through there's like 12 to 14 maneuvers. Each one is separated by about 1 to 3 miles, and you're running in between each one with your pack and your rifle in formation through woods, through mud, in trenches filled with water, under barbed wire, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And each of these maneuvers is designed to be something that is going to test your leadership, your problem solving, something like that. Each person has kind of a chance to be the leader of the squad for each maneuver, so one person for each one. And it's some of them are impossible by design, because they want to know that even if you fail, they want to see how you respond to that as well. So it's a mind game too, which is evil. But throughout the whole thing, basically, you've covered about 40 miles, 15,000 calories burned, with 4 hours of sleep if you were lucky to sleep at all, and through it you eat 2 MREs if you can find the time while you're running. So during that event, we were about 75% of the way through, and running in formation in through this, I guess I'll call it a path in the woods. And I'm like, my uniform is dripping sweat, and I'm feeling faint, and I blacked out. When I came to, I was leaning up against a tree. Most of my uniform, clothes, and everything have been stripped off me, and I had guys just pouring water, cold water over me. And a corpsman told me that I was suffering from heat stroke, and that if I didn't kind of come to and be able to continue in the next 5 minutes or so, They would have to medevac me out, and I'd get sent home, which means I wouldn't finish, and I'd have to start all over again if I wanted to do it next summer. My drill instructor said I had 2 minutes. That's great. So that's when I hit rock bottom. I'd come to the end of myself, and I knew that there's no way that I could continue on in my own strength because I'd just tried that and it wasn't working. So I finally surrendered to God and said, for real this time, that whatever you want to do with me, I trust your plan more than I trust my own plan, because I can't make what I want to happen. So whatever you want to do, I'm cool with that. But I would like to finish this if that's possible. And thankfully, he did give me the strength to finish. So I was able to finish the forge, graduate with my squad, and earn the right to call myself a Marine, which was awesome. There is a Bible verse that really hit home during this time. I didn't know it at the time, but later on when I read it, it brought me right back here, and it's 2 Corinthians 12:9. It says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." And I'd heard that before, but it never really made any sense to me. Like, how can you be strong when you're weak? That doesn't compute. But it made perfect sense to me on that day, and it still does now. So the Marine Corps taught me physical endurance, leadership skills, stress tolerance, mental toughness, perseverance, all kinds of good stuff. But the thing I'm most thankful for is that it actually made me understand what true faith is really like, and how depending on God is actually better than anything else you can do, and definitely better than depending on yourself. After OCS, I went back to college to finish my senior year. And once I'd graduated from college, I faced kind of my first real test of whether my heart had changed or not. And that was either, was I going to continue my plan and go be a fighter pilot, or was I going to go home and be a father to my sons? And so I chose fatherhood over the fighter jet. Went back home, found a job pretty quickly, thank goodness, and started trying to see my kids as much as I could. That was difficult because their mom and I weren't really getting along very well. She felt like I had abandoned her for school and for my own plans, which frankly is pretty fair. So she made it really difficult to be able to see them at all. And I was determined, though, because it was important, and I knew that that's what God wanted me to do. So I went to court, or a friend of the court, and asked them if they could help me get a court-ordered parenting time schedule established. They did that, which was awesome. She didn't follow it. So more on that later. Let's hit pause. During this time also, I met a woman, whose name is Crystal. We started dating for about a year. Then I asked her to marry me. We were engaged for a year, and then now we've been married for 17 and a half years. But the first, I think it was like 3 months into our relationship when we first got together, her dad actually passed away unexpectedly. And so she was a Christian at the time, but when that happened, her faith was basically shattered. She was mad at God, mad at the world, was going through a really tough time. And thankfully, since I had actually gotten a firm foundation of faith under myself, I was able to be there for her and support her, help her through that over time. And she's great now. I mean, she's probably a stronger Christian than I am. But that was a tough time, especially when you have a new relationship and then your kid's mom fighting you on being able to see your kid, both of them, and then your girlfriend's father just passed away. Like, that was a lot of turmoil, it seemed like. I think God likes to throw challenges at me just to see what happens. But it's fun. So All right, so the fairy tale version of when you become a Christian is that, God solves all your problems and everything gets better and it's easy, smooth sailing from then on. But that is definitely a fairy tale because my experience has been the opposite. I experienced way more challenges, harder problems, and life is definitely never easy for me, it seems like. But my ability to handle that has also grown equally or more than any of my challenges have. And that's only due to my relationship with Jesus. Going back to the parenting time and custody thing, when I got married, the mother of my sons, it seems like something broke in her mind, and her behavior and her attitude started getting really, really bad. It was starting to affect the boys and how they would act and how they would talk. They were only a couple years old by this time, but I could see it affecting them in negative ways, let alone causing stress in my own relationship with Crystal. So a few years in, after we'd gotten married, as things kept progressing to get worse, and we'd been to court, 5 or 6 times for different things having to do with parenting time, Crystal and I decided to fight for custody. And so we spent the next year and about $20,000 of attorney's fees, countless hours of research and evidence gathering and all kinds of other stuff. And we fought for custody and we won. So I ended up winning custody of both my sons, which I don't know who here in Michigan knows or has been through anything like that, but for a father to win custody of their kids from a mother who had custody since they were born and who was never married to her is like super rare. So God definitely had his hand on that as well. And I know my boys are better because of it. That didn't end though. That only made things worse. And so for the next 15-ish years, I was in and out of court almost every month, if not every other month for sure, with either parenting time or custody issues that we had to adjudicate. I got so good at learning the court rules and all that kind of stuff that it was I was mistaken as an attorney by other attorneys sometimes, which is kind of cool. But all that experience, even though it was brutal, it was stressful, it was exhausting, it was expensive, none of that was part of my plan, obviously, at least my original plan. But I tried not to look at it as a problem and instead look at it as an opportunity to basically grow myself and learn new things that I might be able to use in the future to help someone else. And thankfully, now that that part of my life is over, I have actually been able to help some people with similar struggles that they're going through with custody battles. So God used that difficulty in my life not only to grow me spiritually and in maturity, but also as kind of a training program to prepare me to help other guys, which I think is pretty cool. There's a Bible verse that goes really well with this as well, and it's Romans 5:3-4. It says, "Suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance, character." I had suffered a lot, but all of that suffering definitely did produce perseverance, and that is the reason why I have the character that I have today, which is much better than that high school kid. So I've talked about my personal life quite a bit, but this is a business meeting, right? So let's talk about professional stuff. So my first job was in engineering, and that was great. I liked it. I thought I was awesome, and I wasn't, so people let me know that pretty quickly. So I still had an issue with pride, but that was corrected quickly by the 30-year veterans out on the floor who actually knew more than I did, even though I thought I knew more than they did. During my career or throughout my career, I have been let go from a job or reorganized out of it or whatever you want to say 4 different times for reasons outside of my control. I've never been fired, and I've left a job a couple times on my own, but the 4 times that I was let go for reasons outside of my control, it really seemed like God's throwing me curveballs and just trying to keep me where I was for some reason and make things difficult. Seemed like a disaster pretty much every time. We would eat through our savings because it would take me 3 to 6 months to find another job. And it was stressful, of course. But looking back, I can tell that that was actually a blessing in disguise. In Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you." And Romans 8:28 says, "We know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose." The reason those stick out to me is because the first 3 times that I was let go, even though I thought it was terrible at the time, I always ended up finding a better job. Either more money, more responsibility, a job I enjoyed more, better culture. It was always a better job. And then the 4th time, I guess I should mention this too. Each one was also caused me to go into a different industry. So I'd have to learn new skills, work with a different management style, some small companies, some large companies. It was almost like a starting over every time. But because of that, I learned a ton about how to run a business and many different types of businesses. So it was really like an experiential MBA that God was putting me through, whether I liked it or not. So the 4th time that I got let go, I decided that I was going to do something different. And rather than just try to find another job, I figure I know how to run a business. I have a ton of experience now in a bunch of different areas, so I'm going to try to buy a business so I can control a little bit more of my own destiny. And I felt like God was calling me that way as well. So, and preparing me for that. So I looked around. The first deal that I had under contract, we were negotiating for a few months. At first it looked like it was going to happen, and then eventually it fell through, which was unfortunate, but I didn't freak out or I didn't stress out. I knew that God's timing has always been better than mine in the past, so I can trust him now too. And now I'm the owner of Barrett Plumbing, which is the second deal that I found. When I bought this company, Barrett Plumbing, I didn't have any background in plumbing. Don't know anything about plumbing, other than there's pipes and stuff. But I did know how to lead. I knew I had perseverance. I knew I could learn whatever I needed to learn. And I knew that as long as I can trust God and keep trying to go the direction he wants me to go, it would all work out just fine. So I went into it, and I'm about 1.5 years in now. Definitely have made some mistakes and learned some things the hard way, but things are going well. We're actually growing, and I'm going to fix what went wrong last year this year. So pay attention to that. It's going to happen. There's a lot more to my story, a lot more challenges, a lot of things I kind of left out and skipped over, but the bottom line is pretty much always the same, and it's that you can't make your own plans and expect them to go exactly how you want, or even force them to when obstacles get thrown in your way. You really have to trust someone who's better than you at planning things for your life. And to me, the only one who can plan something that I could never do better is God. There's another Bible verse that says that the truly wise man builds his house on a firm foundation. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But the firmest foundation that there isn't even structural, it's spiritual, and that's Jesus. Thank goodness I found him a little earlier than later. His plan's always better than ours, and even when you face setbacks, you're probably really being set up for something better. You just have to wait and see. So in business, it seems like we obsess over strategy and marketing and efficient processes and all that good stuff, and that's great. I mean, that's all important thing. Those are all important things. But as any builder will tell you that the most important part of any structure that you're trying to build is the foundation. Even Jesus, on his last, or one of his most famous certain sermons, the last part of it, he talks about a construction project. He said that the wise man built his house on a rock. The storms came and hit the house, but the house stayed because the foundation held it. When storms come, and they will come, and they will hit you, if you don't have a firm foundation, you're going to get washed away. Your house is going to crack and crumble. Your foundation is going to be gone. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people nowadays. And I can tell you that if your foundation is built on money or power or status or education, intelligence, any of that kind of stuff, it's not strong. It's not as strong as you think it is. It's not as strong as I thought it was. The only foundation that is strong enough to withstand any storm isn't even structural, it's spiritual, like I said, and that's Jesus. All the adversity that I faced in my life, even though it was challenging and difficult, it wasn't a punishment like I thought it was at first. It was actually an invitation to grow and to know the person that I need to know to have a strong foundation. And my question to you is, who or what is your foundation? And who is planning how your life is going to go? Is it still you? Is that working out for you? Or have you turned that over to a better planner? That's all I got. Thank you.